All right, so have you ever, like, looked at fat burners? I mean, there's just like a million left.
Overwhelming, right.
It's a wall of bottles, and they all say, like, extreme this and ultra that. And then there's, like, 50 ingredients you've never even heard of before.
Yeah.
It's...
You practically need a chemistry degree.
Right. So in this deep dive, we're going to try to be your translators.
Exactly. You've provided us with this report, Fat Burner Secrets Revealed.
Yeah.
And it's a really interesting look at what science actually says about these things. Like what ingredients might give you a boost, you know?
Right. What's probably just hype in marketing.
Right. And even how to figure out if you're getting a good deal or not, you know, with all the pricing and stuff.
Yeah. And, you know, one thing to keep in mind is this report seems to be written for, like, the average person.
Yeah.
Not necessarily like the hardcore gym rat who's training like crazy every day.
Right. Right. Exactly. It's sort of assuming a baseline of, you know, like...
Just normal activity levels.
Right. Normal activity and diet and all that.
Yeah. And it does point out that things like how active you are, your age, even like any health conditions.
Yeah. These can all make a difference in what your body needs.
Definitely. So what we're hoping to do for you today is help you get past all the marketing hype, all the flashy labels.
Right. Just get to the real information.
Exactly. What can actually help you reach your goals.
Exactly.
That's the mission for today's deep dive.
Okay.
We're going to try to pull out the most useful, the most actionable insights from this Fat Burner Secrets Revealed report.
Sounds good.
Okay, so let's dive in.
All right.
The report starts off by stressing something really fundamental about fat burners.
Yeah.
They're not magic.
No, they're not.
They're helpers. They assist weight loss, but they're not going to do the work for you.
Right. It's not like you just pop a pill and boom, all the weight disappears.
You still got to put in the work.
You got to put in the work. Exactly right. Proper nutrition.
Yeah.
Regular exercise. Those are always going to be the most important things.
Definitely. And the report even gives like a realistic expectation for fat loss.
Right.
Like how much should you aim to lose per week?
Yeah, 1 to 2 pounds per week.
That's it.
Yeah, that's a healthy, sustainable rate.
Okay, so if you see those ads promising like 10 pounds in a week.
Be very skeptical.
Yeah.
Very skeptical, because that kind of rapid weight loss usually means you're losing water weight.
Right.
And muscle mass, not actual fat.
Which is not good.
Not what you want.
Not what we want. Okay, so the report talks about this thing called thermogenesis.
Right.
What is that?
Okay, so thermogenesis is basically how your body produces heat by burning calories.
Okay.
So think of it like your internal engine, you know, revving up and using more energy.
Okay, so how do we rev up that internal engine? What are some good ways to increase thermogenesis?
Well, the report talks about a few key things.
Yeah.
Number 1, exercise.
Of course.
Right. That's a big one.
Makes sense.
Also, increasing your lean muscle mass. So even some light strength training can help with that. Proper nutrition. So eating smaller meals more frequently throughout the day can also help keep your metabolism fired up.
Keep it going.
Yeah, and then there are certain ingredients, things like herbs and certain compounds that can potentially boost thermogenesis as well.
That's what we're all here for, right?
Right, exactly.
All right, so speaking of ingredients, the report mentions this thing called the ECA stack a lot.
Yes.
What's the deal with that?
The ECA stack is a combination of 3 things: ephedrine, caffeine, and aspirin.
Okay.
And the report says this is like a really commonly discussed, pretty well accepted combination for being pretty potent.
So why put those 3 together? What makes them work better as a team than like if you just took each one individually?
Right. So it's all about synergy.
Okay.
So these ingredients actually enhance each other's effects when they're taken together.
Interesting.
It's like they work together to create a bigger impact.
Okay.
The report even mentions this thing called naringin.
Naringin?
Yeah, it's a compound found in grapefruit juice.
Oh.
And it can also work synergistically by basically making certain substances last longer in your system.
Okay.
Including caffeine. So
it's like a booster.
it's kind of like a booster, yeah.
Okay.
So you're getting more bang for your buck, so to speak.
But grapefruit juice, it can also have interactions with medications, right?
Yes, that's a really important point.
Yeah.
If you're taking any prescription drugs, you definitely want to be careful about grapefruit juice.
Okay.
It can mess with how your body processes some medications.
So check with your doctor.
Always a good idea.
All right. So back to the ECA stack. Does the report give any recommendations for dosage? Like how much of each ingredient should you take?
Yeah, it suggests about 20 milligrams of ephedrine, 200 milligrams of caffeine, and 300 milligrams of aspirin. And you can take that up to 3 times a day.
Okay. That's a lot of pills.
It can be, yeah. And when should you take it and how often?
Yeah.
Well, the report says about 30 minutes before your workout.
Okay.
That's when it might help you the most with your exercise and fat burning. And it also says don't use it every single day.
Okay.
Either every other day, or you can cycle it with a week off each month.
So your body doesn't get used to it.
Exactly, because if you use it too much, your body can pick up a tolerance.
Yeah, and then it's not as effective.
Right, exactly.
Okay, so for people who are maybe a little hesitant about taking those chemical compounds in the ECA stack,
Yeah.
are there any herbal alternatives?
There are. Yeah, the report mentions ma huang as a herbal source of ephedrine
Okay.
and willow bark, which has compounds similar to aspirin.
Okay.
But here's the really important thing.
Yeah.
You gotta look for products that are standardized.
Okay, why is that so important?
Because without that standardized label,
Yeah.
you could be getting wildly different amounts of the active compound each time you take it.
So you don't even know how much you're really getting.
Right. It's like playing roulette with your dosage.
Yeah.
But standardized extracts, they tell you exactly how much of the key ingredient is in there.
Which is way more reliable.
Way more reliable.
Okay, good to know. All right, so this ECA stack, it sounds pretty powerful.
It is.
Does the report give any warnings or advice about using it?
Definitely. This is a strong combination.
Yeah.
It can have big effects on your body. So talk to your doctor before you even think about using it,
Okay.
especially if you have any health conditions like high blood pressure or heart
Oh,
problems.
so you're taking other medications.
Yeah, because it could interact with them.
So definitely be careful with that one. Okay, so let's move on from the ECA stack. The report lists a bunch of other ingredients as well.
Right.
Let's talk about what it considers the top-tier ingredients for weight loss.
Okay, so the best ingredients, according to the report, include the ECA stack, especially with that Naragen we talked about.
Mm-hmm.
Then there's ephedrine and caffeine, used separately conjugated linoleic acid, or CLA green tea capsaicin pyruvate. But there's a big caveat with that one corosolic acid from banaba leaf and gymnema.
Okay, so just to clarify, we're not saying these are all like miracle cures.
Yeah.
But these are the ingredients that the report says have the most promising research behind them.
Exactly.
Sure, can you give us like a super quick overview of how some of these are supposed to work?
Sure. So we already talked about caffeine and ephedrine and how they can increase thermogenesis.
Mm-hmm.
The report says CLA might help with fat loss, specifically around your belly.
Okay.
Green tea is thought to have a direct effect on your metabolism.
Interesting.
Capsaicin, that's what makes chili peppers hot.
Yeah.
It's also considered thermogenic, so it might help you burn more calories.
Okay.
Corosolic acid and gymnema, those are mentioned for their potential to help regulate blood sugar levels.
Okay. And what about pyruvate? You said there was a caveat with that one.
Yeah, so pyruvate has actually shown some good results in studies,
Okay.
but those studies used really high doses, like 25 to 40 grams a day.
Wow.
And most supplements you find at the store, they only have a tiny amount of pyruvate.
So it's probably not enough to make a difference.
Probably not. And even if you could find a supplement with a high enough dose, the report says it would be really expensive.
So not really practical.
Not really.
Okay, so the science is interesting, but it's not really translating to the real world.
That's the problem.
Okay, so the report also has a category for what it calls mid-range ingredients.
Yeah.
What are those, and how are they different from the top tier?
So the mid-range ingredients include Synephrine NADH coleus Forskolin hydroxycitric acid, or HCA aspirin Guggul Naragen, 4-hydroxyisoleucine, and theobromine and theophylline, which come from cocoa.
Wow, that's a mouthful.
I know, right? So the report says that the evidence for these ingredients is either limited or mixed, meaning they might help a little, but it's not as clear-cut as the top-tier ingredients.
So the jury's still out.
Yeah, basically.
Okay, so for everyday support, maybe focusing on diet and the simpler ingredients is a better place to start
Yeah, probably.
than relying on these.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Okay, and what about HCA? I feel like I hear that one a lot.
Yeah, HCA is a popular one.
Yeah.
The report says it might work as an appetite suppressant, especially if you eat a lot of carbs.
Interesting.
But again, the doses they used in the studies were way higher than what you usually find in supplements.
So another case of the research not really matching up with what's on the shelves.
Right.
Okay, so we're seeing a pattern here. Dosage is important, and so is the quality of the scientific evidence.
Absolutely.
Okay, so now for the other end of the spectrum.
Yeah.
What about the ingredients that the report says are the least effective or maybe even worthless for weight loss?
Okay, so this list includes 5-hydroxytryptophan, or 5-HTP-diascoria villosa, which is also called Mexican or wild yam Morinda citrifolia, or noniohimbine hydrochloride, or HCl fenugreek. But you'd need take a ton of it for it to maybe have an effect of apple cider vinegar.
Okay.
And interestingly, pyruvate again, because of those low doses in most supplements.
So even though it showed promise in the research,
Right.
it's not really practical?
Not in the way it's usually sold, no.
Okay, so there are some popular ingredients out there that just don't have much evidence to back them up.
Right, and the report really calls out a lot of those herbal remedies
Yeah.
that often don't live up to the hype.
Okay, so something else the report talks about is this idea of brown fat.
Yeah.
What's the deal with that?
So you'll see some fat burner ads talking about how their product activates brown fat to help you lose weight.
Mm-hmm.
And there is some research in animals suggesting that brown fat can burn calories.
Right.
But the report points out a big difference.
Yeah.
Humans don't have much brown fat at all.
Really?
Yeah. Unlike some animals that hibernate, we just don't have a lot of it.
Interesting.
So those claims about activating brown fat to lose a significant amount of weight,
Yeah.
they're probably misleading.
So don't fall for that one.
Okay.
So what about all those vitamins and minerals that are often added to fat burner supplements?
Right.
Does the report say anything about whether those actually help with fat loss?
It does, yeah.
Okay.
So it lists things like B vitamins, calcium, chromium, copper, iron, magnesium vitamins, A, C, and E amino acids like L-carnitine lipotropics and vanadium. And it basically says that if you're eating a balanced diet and maybe taking a multivitamin,
Yeah.
you probably don't need those extra ingredients in your fat burner.
Okay.
They're good for your overall health, but they're not going to magically make you burn more fat.
If you're already getting enough.
Right, exactly. The report specifically mentions L-carnitine,
Mm-hmm.
which your body actually produces naturally.
Okay.
And there's not much evidence that taking extra L-carnitine helps with fat loss.
So you don't need to go out and buy a separate L-carnitine supplement.
Probably not.
Okay, what about lipotropics?
Lipotropics are similar.
Okay.
You usually get enough of those through a balanced diet, so you probably don't need a special lipotropic supplement either.
So it sounds like a lot of those extra ingredients are just there for marketing.
Yeah, to make the product look fancier.
Yeah. Okay, so for someone who's trying to make sense of all this,
Yeah.
what advice does the report give for choosing a fat burner? Like, how do you pick a good one?
The report emphasizes a few key steps. First and foremost, read the label carefully.
Yeah.
Look at all the ingredients. How much of each ingredient is in what the recommended serving size is, and how many pills or doses are in the bottle.
And don't forget about those standardized herbal extracts.
Right. Those are crucial.
Yeah.
Remember, standardized extract means the manufacturer is guaranteeing a certain amount of the active compound.
Yeah, so you know what you're actually getting.
Exactly. It takes the guesswork out of it.
Okay. And what about price? How do you compare prices when there are so many different products?
The report has a great tip for this.
Okay.
Calculate the price per pill,
Okay.
then figure out the cost per serving based on the recommended dosage,
Mm-hmm.
and then calculate the cost per day.
Okay, so you're really breaking it down
Yeah, so you can compare apples to apples.
and see what's actually the best value.
Exactly right.
And the report even shares a little secret about how you might save money on one of the more effective combinations.
Yes.
Tell me more.
So the report says that the combination of ephedrine and caffeine, which has the most evidence behind it,
Mm-hmm.
can often be bought much cheaper if you buy the ingredients separately.
Oh, wow.
So you could buy like ma huang for ephedrine and
Yeah.
then just get some caffeine pills.
Okay.
But it's really important to be careful with the dosing, especially with ephedrine.
Yeah.
Stick to the recommended amounts, no more than 20 milligrams of ephedrine per serving.
Definitely don't overdo it.
Okay.
So the report also lays out a daily recipe for maximizing fat burning.
It does.
What's in that recipe?
Well, it includes a few key lifestyle habits. First, drink plenty of water throughout the day.
Okay, stay hydrated.
Exactly. Then get at least 30 minutes of exercise every day.
Got it.
And eat 5 or 6 smaller meals spread throughout the day.
So you're constantly fueling your body.
Yeah. And then every day it suggests taking a multivitamin,
Okay.
an amino acid complex, or a protein drink,
Mm-hmm.
and drinking green tea, either 4 or more cups, or a green tea supplement,
Okay.
and CLA if it fits your budget. And also, make sure you're getting other healthy fats like flaxseed oil.
Good fats.
Good fats, yes. And then every other day, you could consider taking a product with the ECA combination.
With all the cautions, of course.
Of course, always talk to your doctor first.
Yeah.
And on the days you're not taking the ECA, you could try supplements with Synephrine, Capsaicin, banaba leaf, or gymnema,
Okay.
which might help with blood sugar guggulsterones, which might help with thyroid function and HCA.
Well, that's a lot to remember.
It is, yeah.
But the report does say to start slowly. right?
Definitely introduce one product at a time and see how your body reacts.
Listen to your body.
Watch out for any side effects like digestive problems.
Okay.
And remember, weight loss is a marathon, not a sprint.
Slow and steady.
Exactly.
Okay, so switching gears a little bit, the report also talks about metabolism-boosting foods.
Right.
What kind of dietary recommendations does it make?
So it emphasizes making some basic changes to your diet.
Okay.
First, cut back on fried, fatty, and processed foods.
Usual suspect.
Yeah, basically junk food.
Okay.
Then increase your intake of lean protein like chicken, fish, and turkey.
Mm-hmm.
And eat lots of fruits and vegetables.
The good stuff.
Exactly. And it also says to swap out processed grains for whole grains.
Like brown rice instead of white rice.
Right, exactly.
And does it explain why these dietary changes are supposed to boost metabolism?
Yeah, so it explains that complex carbs and fiber help stabilize your blood sugar,
Okay.
which prevents those spikes that can tell your body to store fat
Makes sense.
and slow down your metabolism. And it also says not to skip meals.
Yeah, I've heard that before.
Yeah, skipping meals can mess with your metabolism too.
So eat regularly.
Eat regularly. And it also talks about the importance of healthy fats.
Okay, like avocado and nuts.
Exactly. Those help regulate hormones, including leptin, which plays a role in metabolism.
Okay, so good fats are actually important for weight loss.
They can be, yeah, in the right amounts.
And it even mentions some specific herbs and spices that can boost metabolism.
Yes, it talks about spicy peppers because of the capsaicin.
Mhm.
Caffeine from coffee and tea, green tea, specifically the EGCG compound in it,
Okay.
and even cocoa.
Wow, so chocolate can boost your metabolism.
In theory, yes.
Interesting. Okay, so the report wraps up with a fat attack,
Mhm.
a 6-step simple nutrition guide.
Right.
Can you summarize those 6 steps for us?
Sure. So step 1 is revise your cupboard.
Okay.
Get rid of all the unhealthy processed food.
Out with the junk food.
Exactly. Step 2 is handy gauge.
Okay.
Use your hand to estimate portion sizes.
Interesting.
Step 3 is eat less more often.
So smaller meals more frequently.
Every 3 hours or so.
Keeps your metabolism going.
Exactly. Step 4 is water yourself.
Stay hydrated.
Yes, drink water regularly, ideally twice as often as you eat.
Okay, I can try that. Step 5 is friendly fats.
Make sure you're eating those healthy fats.
Avocados, nuts, that kind of thing.
Exactly. And step 6 is nutrients.
Okay.
Focus on getting enough vitamins and minerals,
Okay.
maybe through a multivitamin, and make sure you're getting enough calcium, protein, and fiber. Simple but effective.
That's the goal.
All right, so as we wrap up this deep dive into fat burner secrets revealed,
Yeah.
what are the most important takeaways for our listeners who are trying to figure out this whole fat burner thing?
Okay, so remember, fat burners can help you lose weight,
Mm-hmm.
but they're not a replacement for a good diet and exercise.
The foundation.
Exactly. The foundation has to be there.
Yeah.
The combination of ephedrine and caffeine seems to be the most effective,
Yeah.
but it also has the most risks.
Definitely talk to your doctor.
Yes, absolutely essential to talk to your doctor before you try that one.
Mm-hmm.
And be wary of any claims that sound too good to be true.
Yeah. If it sounds like a miracle cure, it probably is.
Probably right.
Oh, okay.
Always read the label, carefully understand the ingredients and the dosages.
And look for that evidence.
Yes, because a lot of ingredients have very little scientific support.
Or they need huge doses to actually work.
Right. Which isn't always practical or safe.
Yeah, so be an informed consumer.
That's the key. Do your research, compare prices, and focus on the basics of healthy eating.
Absolutely.
Those are the most important things.
Those are the things that will actually make a difference in the long run.
Absolutely.
Uh-huh.
So hopefully you, our listener now, have a much clearer understanding of the world of fat burners.
Yeah.
You can see through the marketing hype and make smart choices about what might be helpful for you.
And if you want to dig deeper into any of the ingredients or claims,
Yeah.
the report has links to a bunch of resources,
Okay.
medical journals, government websites, even some commercial sites, but keep in mind those might be biased.
Of course, always be critical.
And there's also some general information about understanding supplements.
Okay, so as you're thinking about all this,
Yeah,
maybe the best fat burner isn't a pill or a powder at all.
right.
Maybe it's just the effort you put into your diet and exercise,
I think that's a great takeaway.
armed with a better understanding of how these supplements work
Exactly.
or don't work.
Yeah.
So what small change will you make today based on what you learned in this deep dive?